unfortunately do have to share a few quotes. Sorry, not sorry. I feel like it low-key just gives the author an excuse to write another book and just make more money. Stop. Hello everyone, you guys know what time it is. It's officially the end of February, so welcome to February's reading wrap-up. I literally live for these videos. The end of the month, every time I get so excited to just talk about books with you guys. This is like a dedicated video just to talk about my opinions. Like if there's one thing that I'm gonna have, it's going to be an opinion. So welcome to the video, welcome to February's reading wrap-up. This month I read a total of 5 books, 3 of those being romance books, 1 of them being a fantasy book, and the other one being a literary fiction book. Those are my statistics for this month. Let's go ahead, let's get right on into today's video because I am so excited. Like I read some good books this month and I can't wait to talk about them with you guys. I think I want to talk about the romance books that I read first and start off on a very, very high note with, drumroll please, none other than The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. Oh my gosh guys, I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. I gave The Love of My Afterlife a 5-star. Like truly one of the best books that I think I've ever read. Like it belongs up there on my favorite shelf for sure. It falls under the category of a rom-com because it's a romantic comedy. Like comedy is the forefront of this book, okay? I was literally laughing out loud at every single chapter throughout this entire book. It was just so funny. If you guys have never heard about The Love of My Afterlife, let me explain the premise really quickly and then I'll kind of go on a rant probably about things that I liked and loved about this book. Basically, the loose plot is that you're following this girl named Delphi and she dies like in the beginning of the book and then she gets sent to the afterlife, but in the afterlife there's a little bit of a mix-up. She meets this guy in the afterlife, but he wasn't ever supposed to be there, so he ends up getting sent back like into the real life. And basically the girl there who's working in the afterlife is like, hey, Delphi, you've lived a pretty boring, lame life. Like, do you low-key want to get sent back down to earth and you have like 10 days to find this guy that you fell in love with in the afterlife, and if you don't find him, you have to come back? Like, crazy storyline, but I loved it so much. I also think it needs to be said, I loved the ending of this book. I feel like it ended literally perfectly. Like, not exactly what I was expecting, but perfect, like literally in the best way possible. I feel like this book was like the perfect mix of everything that I love. Like it was written almost like a literary fiction book, but it had like a subplot of romance attached to it. It also had some magical realism, which obviously you guys know I love so much. And then of course on top of it, it was just such a good book. And also, can it be said, I'm normally a man hater. We all know this, but I did not hate the guy in this book. Sorry, my dog's moving. Like truly, can we just take a second to appreciate that? I'm an avid man hater and I didn't hate him. I actually loved him. Like I also have a vlog posted where I read this book in and like cut to that vlog and cut to me obsessing over this man. Guys, her neighbor, like I love him. I love Cooper. I love Cooper. He deserves literally the world. He's just so funny. Why am I obsessing over a man? It was horrible, but it was the best time of my life. So definitely giving The Love of My Afterlife a 5 stars. Stop. Stop, Bryn, that's so embarrassing. You know what, new path, new direction. I'm not gonna share anything from this book. I think you should go into The Love of My Afterlife blind, so I'm not even gonna share any quotes because I feel like the quotes give away a lot of the book and I'm not gonna do that to you guys. I don't think I'll ever shut up about this book. I was not expecting it to be that good. Next book I wanna talk about is kind of on a worse note, but we have to get to it at some point, so let's just get it out of the way. The next book is Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey. If I have to talk about this book one more time in my existence, I actually I'm gonna blow up. For me in this book, it was literally 3 strikes and you're out. Sorry, it's the 3rd strike and it's out. I DNF'd this book for the 3rd time. Like for some reason, I can never give up. Like it's a bad trait to have, especially when it comes to books, because hey, why have I kept this book in my library for literally 2 years now? Keep continually trying to read it and then keep getting disappointed. Like I'm setting myself up for disappointment and failure, and for some reason I just keep continuing this cycle. Like why am I being inspirational? I don't know, but I'm talking about a book. The premise sounds so fun, like the whole idea of the book, like just look at the cover. This looks like the most perfect book for me. It was not. I think I got to like chapter 10, which is a little bit farther than I've gotten before. I can normally only get to chapter 7 in this book and then I'm like so checked out, but I got to chapter 10 this time. Still hated it. So the whole premise and idea of this book is that these two characters work at bookstores that are like across the street from each other. I think the guy works at like a Barnes and then the girl works at like a small town like bookstore vibe, and she's like really hating on him because he's taking the business from her. And I understand as an author you want to kind of add the other person into the other person's storyline, but it makes me so mad. So unfortunately we are going to move on. DNF Last Chance Books, and if I talk about this book again in a video, like actually tase me. I hope lightning strikes down from the sky and like just shocks my body if I have to talk about Last Chance Books again. Literally me and Last Chance Books is like a toxic relationship. Like I just need to let go. The next book that I want to talk about is none other than Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This book changed my life. I feel like since this is like a literary fiction but written in the way of like an autobiography, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, because those two genres are normally not the genres that I read or even indulge in at all. But this book truly made me want to start reading more books in that genre because it was so good. So good. Basically the whole idea of this book is that you're following a therapist's life and then you're also following the lives of a few of her clients. I think they're just called clients. Basically the therapist that we're following goes through a very bad breakup and she ends up needing a therapist of her own. So she ends up getting a therapist named Wendell. Anyway, she needs a therapist. She ends up going with Wendell, who's another therapist, and you're kind of just like following the trajectory of her life and her getting better, and then you're also following like her other clients and the trajectory of their lives, and you're watching them grow and change and just like become better people. It made me cry, and there are so many things that I highlighted from this book. I unfortunately do have to share a few quotes. This quote says, "Grief, not surprisingly, can resemble depression, and for this reason, until a few years ago, there was something termed the bereavement exclusion in our profession's diagnostic manual. If a person experienced the symptoms of depression in the first 2 months after a loss, the diagnosis was bereavement. But if those symptoms persisted past 2 months, the diagnosis became depression. Are people really supposed to be done grieving after 2 months? Can't grief last 6 months or a year or in some form or another an entire lifetime?" Like, you guys know the soul tie between me and books that talk about grief. It will never not bring me to tears, unfortunately. And just like the way that this book was just formatted was, I feel like, so special because like it was a mix of psychology and self-help and also like following someone's life like just a normal literary fiction slash autobiography. Like another quote says, "We tend to think that the future happens later, but we're creating it in our minds every day. When the present falls apart, so does the future we had associated with it. And having the future taken away is the mother of all plot twists. But if we spend the present trying to fix the past or control the future, we remain stuck in place in perpetual regret." Another quote that I want to share says, "People often mistake numbness for nothingness, but numbness isn't the absence of feelings, it's a response to being overwhelmed by too many feelings." Another quote says, "There was an unspoken irony to all of this. People wanted a speedy solution to their problems, but what if their moods had been driven down in the first place by the hurried pace of their lives? They imagined that they were rushing now in order to save their lives later, but so often later never came." Psychoanalyst Eric Fromm had made this point more than 50 years earlier. "Modern man thinks he loses something, time, when he does not do things quickly, yet he does not know what to do with the time he gains except kill it." Fromm was right. People didn't use extra time earned to relax or connect with friends or family. Instead, they tried to cram more in. I promise I'll shut up about this book now, but my final rating for this book is going to be a 4 stars. Not a 5. I really don't know why it's not a 5. I just think it's because it's not the exact genre that I normally read. Unfortunately, and this is gonna sound absolutely horrible, but unfortunately if it had a subplot of romance, it would be a 5 star. This book is so good, and I feel like if you like self-help books, this will literally be a 5-star self-help book for you, but I'm just not a very big self-help book person. I just don't love self-help books like that, but 4 stars for sure. The next book that I read is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Now, you guys know, okay, I talk about this book all the time, so you guys know that I've read this book before, okay? This is not my first time reading this. This is actually my second time reading this book. I'm not normally like a big rereader of books, but I feel like when it comes to my favorite books of all time, unfortunately, I am. And I have not been in this world with Elliot and Macy in literally 2 years. Okay, I had to be back with them. I love them. Elliot and Macy are my best friends, and they don't even know it, and they also don't exist. So that's awesome. Hey, I seem totally sane and okay, right? I just love this book so much. Like, if you want a book where the 2 main characters are just book people and book lovers, look no further. It is the most perfect, cutest, cozy book ever to exist. This book is a childhood friends to lovers between Elliot and Macy. It's also a second chance romance, so there's a little bit of a sprinkled added layer to it that just makes it so perfect and amazing. Basically, the plot line, if you guys don't know about this book, following these 2 characters, Elliot and Macy, and basically it goes from like a then perspective to a now perspective. with. And back then they basically had houses that were like neighboring each other. So Elliot would go over to Macy's all the time. They would sit in her closet and read books and talk about books and just bond and become besties. And you get into like the now perspective, and Macy's due to be married to a different guy that's not Elliot, and she runs into Elliot again, and it kind of just goes from there. I want nothing but happiness for Elliot and Macy for the rest of their lives. Like, sorry, can they have happiness in their next lifetime too? I just love them so much. This book I gave a 5 stars when I first read it, and it's gonna have to stay that way. I feel like I just keep yapping and it's so annoying, but like, what else am I supposed to do? The next book I want to talk about I actually read on my trusty Kindle. Also, got a new Kindle. Let's see how long it takes me to crack this one, truly. Back to the point. The next book that I read is none other than Four Ruined Realms by Mai Corland. Now, this is the second book in a trilogy. Four Ruined Realms came out this year. I immediately had to get it and read it. Like, I do think about the first book, Five Broken Blades, all the time. I feel like I'm in like the 1% of people who love that book, like with all of their heart, body, mind, and soul. I unfortunately did give Four Ruined Realms a 3.5 stars. I feel like, and I'm gonna be honest here, okay, I have a very big disconnect when it comes to trilogies, because I feel like every author just like uses a trilogy as an excuse to make another book like in the middle that never needed to exist. Middle book in a trilogy, for me personally, sorry, hey, this is just the way I feel like a low-key just gives the author an excuse to write another book and just make more money. There never needed to be that book in the middle, because it's always just a book that drags, has barely any plot line, is just there enough to keep the readers invested, but not enough to where it even makes sense in like a plot line scenario. I feel like I'm hating really heavily on the book, but I still did really enjoy it. As you guys know, I love these characters like with literally all of my heart, so obviously I just loved reading about them in any sense of the word. Just loved reading about them again and being back in their world, even if it wasn't the most interesting thing ever. I need more of the characters as much as I can get, so I'm not complaining about that. I also love the fact that our two girl characters finally became like friends and really close in this book, and I feel like those two were holding it down. They were truly holding like the first half of the book on their backs, okay? Like Ari and Sora, they were not the closest of friends in the first book. I feel like kinda, but not really. And I feel like they really connected in the second book, and I love to see that, because they both needed a female friendship so bad and need to like talk about things with each other. Oh my god, it like destroys me every time I think about them. But they were holding the book down like for the first half of the book. Like it was only them that I cared about, and then it kind of got back into the normal characters and everything else, and I was like, okay, love the rest of the crew too. But Yoon, like, love him truly, but why does he do everything wrong? Somebody asked me like, define self-sabotage. I would literally just say his name. You're sabotaging yourself, you're sabotaging your love life, you're sabotaging the kingdom, you're sabotaging literally everything, hey. But I kind of relate. Anyways, guys, with all that being said, that brings us to the end of today's video. Sorry, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out all my socials, links down in the description box down below. I love you guys so much. I will see you guys super soon with another video, okay? Goodbye from me and my dog, who's taking a nap over here. Isn't she the cutest thing ever? Like, I'm sorry. A moment for her, of course. In every video, she needs a moment. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time with a new video. Goodbye.